This is Venice. At least that's what comes to minds of most of the people who hear the name Venice. And you can get here by bus or by train, or even a limited number of cars can drive to the edge of the historical center. But you cannot drive in historical Venice since there are basically no roads and no drivable streets. This is a city truly made for walking. Well, and you can of course go by a boat, and I do not necessarily mean gondolas for tourists, but real boats, which we can see whenever we look at any canal. Everything that comes here, and I mean everything, not only people, is by boats actually. Officially, around a quarter million people reside in Greater Venice, of whom only 50,000 live in the historical island city and the rest on the mainland. The population of Venice, and I am talking about the historical center here where we are right now, peaked at 164,000 in 1931, almost 100 years ago. And now it is around 50,000 only. Pretty dramatic decrease. And that's one of the reasons why many believe that this is a dying city. That Venice is dying, or it's on the way to certain death, is an idea many people around the world believe. The major problems that Venice is facing today are overtourism, and you can see quite clearly, high tides, and erosion. The idea of Venice as doomed is most associated with Thomas Mann's 1912 novel Death in Venice, which was about the unrequited love of a man who dies in Venice during a cholera pandemic, or epidemic, I should say. Talk of Venice dying returned after the all-time record flooding on November 4, 1966, and in 2019, Venice's acqua alta, which means high water, got up to 187 centimeters, which is a little over 6 feet, the second highest level of flooding ever recorded. At that time, more than 80% of Venice was underwater, and the subsequent wave of quote unquote Save Venice global sympathy. For some, the Venice is dying, see it before it sinks mantra was always just a marketing slogan to attract tourists. It also served well for novelists who have written hundreds of books that explore and profit from the city's rich history and form. The current causes for population loss are the usual suspects. Mass tourism has driven up rents, turned thousands of properties into bed and breakfast and vacation stays listed on Airbnb and similar, and at the same time, wealthy outsiders have plucked up scores of properties. And what is being done about it? The city's latest effort to address overtourism is that starting in 2024, visitors must pay a fee of €5, which is a little bit over $5 to enter the lagoon city. This is kind of a test run. We will see if it will stick. The charge is in place on peak weekends and some other days, and I suspect that it will become permanent. This day tripper fee is in force during the peak hours from 8:30 a.m. until 4 p.m., meaning visitors who come into Venice for dinner or a concert will not have to pay. Tourists who are staying overnight do not have to pay the new day fee but must apply online for an exemption. And overnight guests who book a hotel are already subject to a different tax. And you have noticed the bridges, as everyone does and everyone uses them. There are almost 500 of them, and some of them are private. All the bridges are pretty old, with the exception of one which looks very, very new, and everyone who enters the city will probably notice it. And doesn't matter if you go by car, by bus, or by train. It's right at the kind of an entrance to the city. There are 177 canals in Venice, so yeah, those bridges are needed and are used. The S-shaped Grand Canal is the biggest and splits the city in two. And well, Venice is sinking, and the sinking rate is between 1 to 2 millimeters a year. And some experts believe Venice could be a ghost town eventually, with only tourists visiting by day. But I don't think it's quite likely in our lifetime. There will always be tourists, and there will be some people who live here, but not that many. And just kind of for fun, I will mention some interesting facts. The first woman in the world that graduated was born in Venice in 1646, and the first public casino in the world, as far as we know, was opened in Venice in 1638. If you live here, this is how the stuff gets delivered to your house or to your business. The heart of the city is undoubtedly Piazza San Marco, or St. Mark's Square in English, with St. Mark's Basilica, Doge's Palace, and the Campanile or Bell Tower as the most iconic buildings in the city. The centerpiece of Piazza is the magnificent St. Mark's Basilica. This church is so named because it houses the body of Saint Mark. A couple of Venetian merchants stole the saint's body from Alexandria and brought it back to Venice in the year 829, and the construction of the church began soon after. But it is an active church, so if you get there during a mass, you are out of luck and visitors have to wait. But you can join the mass. Just find the signed entrance to the basilica and you can be in, no problem. No one is checking your membership in Catholic Church. But of course, being there during the mass is a different experience than going there as a tourist. And you cannot walk around admiring the art in the building itself and take pictures. But you can do it after the mass, before the basilica is flooded by tourists again. The interior of the domes, the walls, and the upper walls are slowly covered with gold ground mosaics depicting saints, prophets, and biblical scenes. Many of these mosaics were later retouched or remade as artistic tastes changed and damaged mosaics had to be replaced, such that the mosaics represent 800 years of artistic styles. Some of them derive from traditional Byzantine representations and are masterworks of medieval art. Others are based on preparatory drawings made by prominent Renaissance artists from Venice and Florence. Standing beside the basilica is the bell tower that was originally built in the early 16th century. Sadly, the tower collapsed in 1902 and it was later rebuilt exactly as it had been. 98.6 meters tall landmark. It is the tallest structure in Venice and one of the most recognizable symbols of the city. Located in St. Mark's Square near the mouth of the Grand Canal, the tower was initially intended as a watchtower to sight approaching ships and to protect the entry to the city. It also served as a landmark to guide Venetian ships safely into harbor. Historically, the bells served to regulate the civic and religious life of Venice, marking the beginning, pauses, and end of the workday, the convocation of government assemblies and public executions. Oh la la. And yes, you can go to the tower and get up and admire beautiful views of Venice from above, but you have to wait, usually a very long time in line to get there. Hey, have I mentioned that Venice is overcrowded? Palazzo Ducale, or the Doge's Palace in English, the ruling center and residence of Venice's Duke, was built to show off the power and wealth of the Republic, and many people take tours of the palace. But after seeing that I would have to wait at least an hour to get the ticket and get in, I decided to pass. It is a masterpiece of Gothic architecture. It is an impressive structure composed of layers of building elements and ornamentation from its 14th and 15th century original foundations to the significant Renaissance modifications. The structure is made up of three large blocks, incorporating previous constructions. The wing towards the St. Mark's Basin is the oldest, rebuilt from 1340 onwards. The wing towards St. Mark's Square was built in its present form from 1424 onwards, and the canal side wing, housing the Doge's apartments and many government offices, dates from the Renaissance and was built between 1483 and 1565. That's what they say. If you have time, I am sure it's worth a visit. You can walk around the square and explore the shops and also some museums. Well, and since we are in Italy, you can buy not only some souvenirs, but there are also some designer stores if you want some Italian designed fashion. And if you like to take a relaxed approach to sightseeing, you can enjoy a drink at one of the cafes lining the square. Drinks here will be pricey, but sitting within the gorgeous surroundings of St. Mark's Square will allow you to take in the sights as you people watch and relax. There is a long arcade on three sides of the square, and the buildings on the north side are known as the old procuracies, formerly the homes and offices of the procurators of St. Mark, high officers of state in the days of the Republic of Venice. They were built in the early 16th century, and the arcade now is lined with shops and restaurants at ground level with offices above. The arcade continues along the west end of the piazza, which was rebuilt by Napoleon around 1810 and is known as the Ala Napoleonica, which means Napoleonic wing. Venice is many islands, and this is a church on one of them, Church of San Giorgio Maggiore, a 16th century Benedictine church on the island of the same name. The battle for the tidal lagoon out of which the city rises is already centuries old. Even under the empire, Venice had to undertake pharaonic rerouting of rivers, canal digging, and gigantic seawall building to protect it. The lagoon, an unstable formation that endures only with human intervention, needs constant work. Venice has been reinventing itself repeatedly in the centuries since the Venetian Empire abruptly ended in 1797. Venice has not remained still in the contemplation of the past. It has known how to change, how to adapt, and hopefully it will survive. Actually, no city on earth is quite as improbable as Venice, a conglomeration of island developments built on wetland. Venice grew out of a lagoon in the collapsing days of the Roman Empire and found itself, for a time, at the center of the Western world, a global trade link between Europe, North America, and the Middle East. On film, Venice has proven a versatile place, an enduringly popular image of gondoliers escorting couples along historic waterways lined with palazzos, an image seen in cinema as far back as 1896 in Lumiere Brothers' Panorama du Grand Canal, has lent Venice the reputation of a romantic city, a notion drawn upon in innumerable films. More tragic romances like Senso (1954) and The Souvenir, a more recent one, 2019 I think, have played upon the idea of Venice of a city of love in their own way. Venice, though, is also a city of mirrors and masks, an ideal setting for films of a psychological bent like The Lost Moment or The Talented Mr. Ripley, one of my favorites. It's a labyrinth, gothic city, which lends itself comfortably to mystery and horror, two genres that are of Mr. Poirot installment A Haunting in Venice straddles. And it's a city of operatic grandeur, all the better for staging epic action in blockbusters like Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. And one of Steven Spielberg's movies visited Venice also, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade with Harrison Ford. And James Bond, oh wow, James Bond creators are evidently in love with Venice. James Bond, Casino Royale, From Russia with Love, Moonraker, that's four of them over the years. Over 300 books were set in Venice. Which writers are associated with Venice? Well, for example, Byron, Pushkin, Shelley, Oscar Wilde, Goethe, Browning, Pound, Cocteau, Simons, Gautier, and Hemingway, for example. However, there are so many other noteworthy writers that you will never tire of reading and seeing Venice through their eyes. As witnessed or proven by tens of millions of visitors who come to Venice every year, the city, no matter what shape it is in, no matter how much it struggles to survive, is worth visiting. And I hope it will be worth visiting for it will be here for the centuries to come. So I think this will be the end for today. I could talk a lot longer, show you more video, but that would be too long. So I hope you liked what I put together today. Thank you for your time. Thank you for watching and goodbye.